episode of the Red Pill Diaries. Greetings, everyone. This is a news brief. So we want to talk to you about some of the latest happenings around the world, especially in America, especially what's going on economically. And I want to bring some things to mind to you, okay? I want to bring something up on the screen real quick. So give me a second to bring it up for you, all right? Um, Here we are. I want to share something with you. Do you see this up on the screen? This is the latest video by Gregory Mannarino. I had him. He's an excellent guest I've had, and we're supposed to have him back this month on the show. And this is what he was saying about what's going on. This is the headline. Stocks fall. Congress and the president again fail to help the American people. So there are a lot of you who are hanging on by a thread economically. And you are looking for some kind of help, not a handout, as they would say, but a help. Because I think a lot of times people, they say certain things and it has negative connotations, okay? So if the government gives you something, they say a handout. But they don't ever say that when you give the government something against your will, that it's a handout. Because remember, as you pay taxes, before you ever receive any of your money from your hard labor, the government takes it out and decides what it wants to do with your taxes, right? And they allot this amount to this and this amount to that. Now let's look at this. There are so many of us who are barely holding on. I mean, barely getting by. So many of us. And so in the midst of this, you're looking for the $1,200 stimulus or whatever it's going to be. And a lot of people say a handout, but it's not a handout, because if you look at it, the big thing, most of you pay taxes in this. I say that if America can allot all of this money for special military budgets overnight, $400 billion added to a $780 billion military budget, all right? And then they could add all this, what they call pork, to all of these spending bills. They should be able to help the people here in America. And it seems like they will help everybody but you on the street. Because look at this. In 2008, they were talking about the economy collapsing. And they said that if we don't take this X amount of money, 500 billion, they give out, plus they gave out massive amounts more that you weren't even aware of, that took the toll over $1 trillion, right? They immediately, within one night, came to an agreement, because they said the economy may not make it the next morning. And they gave this massive amount of money out to the same corporations that caused the impending implosion. Now, how does that make sense? Make that make sense to me. They say, well, we need these businesses not to go belly up. Why didn't you think about the people? The people are what keeps businesses from going belly up. If you would have thought enough of the people, you could have taken that money and put it directly into the hands of the people. But no, you took the money and gave it to the same people who caused the crisis. And then you know what they did? They bought them jets, mansions, and gave everybody big bonuses that were the big wigs. And now we are in the ramifications of that right now. And they're still talking about bailing out other businesses, major corporations. And yet they cannot come to an agreement to give you $1,200. If that is not contempt for the people, if that is not a spit in the face to the people, then you tell me what that is. You can give money to the people to cause the crisis. You can contemplate giving even more money to those same people who have misspent the allocated money that you gave them from jump. But you have to go and fight, fist fight, to even come up with $1,200 for the people who are suffering, who are losing their jobs. You can't give them $600 a week, but you gave the criminals at Wall Street trillions. And the people are not, you see, the people are not that angry about it. You see the protests, you see the rising up, but you don't see it on the level that you're going to see, because when people get fed up, they lose it. And this is why the government is running all of these so-called drills about urban warfare. This is why the government is running these so-called quarantine drills, because they want to see just how much that you can take, right? As they allocate more money that they don't have. They are borrowing from you and your future to give money to people who already have tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And yet you're not mad about that. But you're mad about somebody over here that may be black, or you mad at somebody over here that may have a nice house, that is working hard, or somebody in your neighborhood that may have offended you for some trivial. But you're not mad about people who you put in those elected offices, right? And they're stealing your money, giving it to more corporations, and it's becoming more and more obvious, because you see more and more Congress people who have flouted the very rules that they try to force you to obey by having insider knowledge, and they'll invest in certain corporations, and right before the corporations go under or something like that, they'll take a massive payout, and then they'll go invest in something else. This is criminal. The government is criminal, and their actions are proven that they're inept and criminal, right? But let's go further, all right? Because I'm gonna bring something else on the screen. So bear with you, brother. Bear with me. I'm passionate about truth. I have to get truth out, okay? I'm passionate. And don't be mad at me for this. But if you look to the screen here, right, you'll see a report on the Silver Report Uncut. And these are videos, right? I'm going to go to something, the video screen, all right? Listen to these headlines, and this is just in the last week itself, okay? Regal Theaters suspend U.S. operations. Las Vegas worse for renters not paying. Airline to cut 32,000 jobs. Let's go to the next one. Inflation already hit. The reason the Fed needs inflation means it's about to get so much worse. Let's go. We'll skip over to Toronto housing, because we're talking about in America at this moment. All right. We're talking about the United States of America, not the Canadian nation of the North American continent. Here in the next one, it says billionaire sees wealth surge by a record amount during 3 months. Everyone were locked in their home. If this is not class warfare, then you tell me what that is. The haves happen to get more, and the have-nots happen to get quarantined, right? And they're being dangled on a string for $1,200, $2,400, $4,500. We're going to give it to you. We're going to take it back. We're going to give it to you. We're going to take it back. We're just about ready to agree on it. Oh, there's still a lot of issues, but they have no issues whatsoever giving money to the rich. Do you not see that this is fascist? When corporations merge with government, or corporate policy becomes government policy, do you know that? So what you're looking at is a blatant, open contempt. This is no longer hidden. This is open contempt for the middle and lower class. Most people always talk about the middle class being wiped out, and they fail to ever even mention those people who are stopped at the bottom, which are the vast majority of the people. The vast majority of the people. So I'm here to talk about not only the middle class, I'm talking about the so-called lower class, the ones who always get dirt kicked in their face, the ones who always get looked upon as though they don't work when they give it their all, going to 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. Okay? I'm here to talk about the truth. You can like it or dislike it. But let's go further. On this one, it says global famine pushes food prices into hyperdrive, right? We're seeing the makings of that. You can go into the stores and see shelves empty. You can go into the stores and see that which is crazy. Listen, and you fall for this. I know some of you fall for this, but those of you who have been watching me on other platforms are already aware of this. And I'm going to show, for those of you who are just joining us, I'm going to show you how they make you believe things that is against common sense, okay? they'll tell you that less is more. Instead of you buying a whole container of detergent, when you usually can get it for $5, right? Tide, the container of Tide detergent. And now you're paying $15 and $20 for a container this big of Tide detergent, right? They'll tell you to go get pods. They clean better. All of this is concentrated in here. And you'll pay $10, $15 for something that's the size of a soda can or just a little bit bigger. And you believe it. And you'll go pay for that. Do you not know that this is inflation? They mask inflation. When you used to couldn't buy sodas, which I don't drink sodas, but just to let you know, and the cans were so much bigger. And then they started shortening the cans and shortening the cans. And then they got clever with it. Now the cans are not flat at the bottom. The cans are a curvature at the bottom so that they can rob you of some of what you paid for. That's inflation. I hear some people say this. When I was a kid or when I was growing up, I used to get this and this for $0.25. And now it costs me $2. That's inflation. The currency is being robbed of its value. Whenever you have to print up or use more of that item, then it has lost its value, right? The value of, if it took one to purchase this, and now it takes 5, then that one at one time had a higher value than the 5 that you're using now. That's inflation. All right? And you're getting less and you're getting a worse product. No one who listens to this video can tell me that the products today are superior to the ones back in the 70s or something like that. Some of you may be 80s children or something like that. But the more we progress in time, the less concentrated or the less potent the product is. You notice how the cough medicine is watered down and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. I'm just running these facts by you because a lot of us, we don't use common sense. Okay. Now let's go a little further. On this video, it says auto worker shortage strains supplies. Mass exodus from manufacturing plants. Crane counts plummet. So that's letting you know across the board of manufacturing and house building, there is a problem going on. Okay? I'm reading these things to you. You're seeing it. Listen to what this says. Independent restaurants struggle to survive the recovery, right? San Francisco's tax revenues plummet. So they're telling you that this is not just confined to one area of the economy. This has spread all through the economy. Okay? And look, this gold bull market is unlike anything we've seen. Failing fiat currency, inflation, and newfound gold. So they're giving estimates that gold could be between $5,000, $6,000, and even $12,000 coming up with the growing inflation, the diving dollar value, right? The explosion of prices, the lack of jobs, the shuttering of businesses, right? The scarcity of food. And yet you are talking about the NBA finals. Yet you're talking about keeping up with the Kardashians. Or what? The way they have you, it's like they have you in La La Land in the midst of a total economic collapse. And even here, small business closures reach alarming rate. Many never opened. 18% unemployment for low-wage workers. You see this? Does this sound like an economic recovery? And mind you, this is all taking place in the midst of a trade war, a tech war, and an economic war with really the world's largest economy, even though we say that America is the largest economy. But in reality, when you do purchasing power parity, China surpassed America as the largest world economy in 2015, and you can Google this. So in the midst of a total shutdown of jobs, an explosion of inflation, a decline in purchasing power of your currency, right? Multiple and massive store closures, real estate problems, bank foreclosures and collapses. We are intertwined into a currency, technology, and economic war with the biggest economy on the planet. How does that make sense? And if it makes sense in your head, let me know. And at the same time, America continues to put all of her eggs in one basket. She continues to bail out the same people who have benefited from the crisis. And yet the people who are suffering the most are continued to be dangled carrots that they never get. This has a recipe for total explosion in America because the government leaders are inept and they're derelict of their duties. And we're looking at a fall from grace domestically and internationally. Now, you may not like what I'm saying, but I always say disprove what I'm saying. Let's go to something before we close out this, okay? Before we close out this, give me a second with you. Don't be mad at me, okay? I have to tell you the truth. Don't be mad at me. So we'll bring up something on the screen. We're going to bring up one more thing on the screen and we'll discuss this. And then we'll close out. Because this was supposed to be a 10-minute video, but we're up to like 17 minutes. But just give me a second, okay? This article here, this article right here, written by Michael Schneider on October 15th. It's titled, The Economic Implosion of 2020. Job losses ramp up again as millions of Americans continue to slide into poverty, right? Remember months ago, they were saying that over 48 million had lost their jobs, right? And then there were some reports that saying upwards of 58 million had lost their jobs or were about to lose their job. Now, if we take those numbers, and then we add with the last 2 months or so, the revving up of job losses and business closures, right? And we just come to a 60 million, right? You must remember, there's roughly only 330 million people in America. And the family, in a typical family in America is between 4 and 5 people, right? Right? So if we take that and we do math and we say 60 million, and then we add 5 per, that gives you 300 million that are out of work or suffering from someone who is out of work. See, these are numbers that they don't want to talk about. So we're looking at the great collapse, and yet you don't see it. Look at this article. The economic implosion of 2020. Job losses ramp up again as millions of Americans continue to slide into poverty. Let's read a little bit of it before we close out. The mainstream media keeps trying to convince us that things are about to get a whole lot better for the U.S. economy. But instead, they just keep getting worse. On Thursday, we learned that another 898,000 Americans filed new claims for unemployment benefits last week. So he said it keeps getting worse. Regardless to all of the hoo-ha-ha and the brightness that they talk about, oh, it's a resilient economy. The economy is roaring back. He says, the mainstream media keeps trying to convince us that things are about to get a whole lot better for the U.S. economy. But negates everything that he just said. Instead, they just keep getting worse. On Thursday, we learned that another 898,000 Americans filed new claims for unemployment benefits last week. That was the highest number that we have seen since August. And it is yet more evidence that a new wave of layoffs has begun. But according to the experts that the mainstream media relies upon, this wasn't supposed to happen. According to them, The number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits was supposed to be steadily tapering off as the U.S. economy shifts into recovery mode. Unfortunately, for all of us, those experts have been dead wrong. You hear that? So while you're preoccupied with spending your money on hairdos and the latest Jordans, you better start investing in food, supplies, and something tangible, because you can't eat your Jordans. You can't eat your $100 shirt. You can't eat your $200 pants. You can't feed your family with $400 Nikes. Okay? He says this. Yesterday, I wrote about the decline of the middle class in our country, and here in 2020, this pandemic has greatly accelerated that process. In fact, one new study has found that almost 8 million more Americans have plunged into poverty since May. Nearly 8 million Americans have slid into poverty since May, according to a Columbia University study reported by the New York Times. Why it matters. The researchers found that the monthly poverty rate for September was higher than the rate during April and May, and it also topped pre-crisis levels due to the expiration of the CARES Act, stimulus checks, and $600 per week supplement to unemployment benefits. And another study discovered that 6 million more Americans fell into poverty in just the last 3 months. So that's 14 million, right? A separate study by researchers at Notre Dame and the University of Chicago found that 6 million people have slipped into poverty in the last 3 months per the Times. Our hearts should be breaking because of what is going on, of what is going on. Listen to what he says. All over the country right now. Millions upon millions of hardworking people have lost their jobs and can't find new ones. As a result, they have lost the comfortable middle class lifestyles that they once enjoyed and have now joined the ranks of the poor. But see, he failed to mention that the poor sometimes often have to take 2 and 3 part-time or 2 full-time jobs, right? They are hard working. They are harder working than most middle class. They just don't get the breaks. And now the middle class, who once enjoyed a certain benefit and luxury, have been brought into the state of poverty with the lower class or the poor people, right? He says, but the official government numbers don't look that bad because millions of those people are not even categorized as unemployed. Instead, see, these are tricks that the government use to try to make you believe that the economy is roaring ahead. They don't even count the ones who have lost their job, or the ones who are still looking for a job, or the ones who are about to be laid off as unemployed. Instead, many of the workers that have lost their jobs during this pandemic has been thrown into a category that is called not in the labor force. In order to have faith in the official government numbers, you have got to believe that more than 100 million working age Americans are not in the labor force. You see that? 100 million. Because they don't want to work. That's what he says. When people are losing jobs left and right. He says, it is such a shame. Why don't we just put every single American that is not working into that not in the labor force category so that we can have 0% unemployment? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Of course, the truth is that more Americans are being laid off with each passing day. Over the past few weeks, some of the most iconic companies in the entire nation have been letting workers go, right? Further, companies have begun initiating layoffs on a trajectory similar to traditional recessions, economists said, as slowdowns in consumer demand rather than state-mandated shutdowns lead them to cut jobs or close for good. Companies such as Allstate, you're in good hands, not so good hands now, American Airlines, Disney, Royal Dutch Shell, and United Airlines have each announced plans to cut thousands not tens, not hundreds, but thousands of workers in recent weeks. Some parts of the country have been hit much harder than others by this economic downturn. For instance, tourism has dried up almost completely in Las Vegas, and this week there have been more layoff announcements. Now, what we're seeing, and I'm going to say this and close, I'm not going to finish reading the whole article, but what we're seeing is an implosion, an economic and social implosion in America, all while she's relegated her military to over 5,000 bases. I said 5,000. I didn't say 800. I didn't say 900. I said 5,000. On one government study, when the Pentagon was given her rundown of how many bases and training camps and hubs that America had around the globe, they said over 5,000. I heard it. I read it. I even did a show about it. Over 5,000 bases. This costs tens of billions of dollars to keep going yearly, right? And then you have to pay soldiers. Then you have to pay training. Then you have to pay the war games, the exercises. You have to pay for the logistics. You have to pay for the deployment of different weapons and different radars and different warplanes. And you have to pay for fuel. You have to pay for food. This is a heavy burden on the American empire. And all the while she's fighting economic wars, she's sanctioning everybody around the globe that doesn't agree with her. She's fighting economic wars, cultural wars. She's fighting political wars at home and abroad. Remember, what you see at home, right, is a reflection of America's policy international. So while these things are going on, the economic meltdown, the job shutdown, I advise you to try to build a job for yourself. Make a job for yourself. If you cannot make a job for yourself, you better be mindful of the way you spend your money. You better take what little money you have and invest in something. Well, I don't have much money. You have money. If you got a car with some 20-inch rims on it, sell your 20-inch rims. You can't eat that. You take that money and you invest in something sound, something tangible, real estate. You may say, well, gold or silver. I say food and water and the things that you will need in a complete collapse, because this thing, when it goes, it will be Mad Max-like. For those of you who don't understand what I'm saying, go look at the movie Mad Max. I've talked to several people behind the scene and even to Gregory Mannarino, and they were talking about this thing looks like a Mad Max scenario coming down the pipe. Just look at your family. This is what I'm saying. Look at the security of yourself and your family. Do you want to be at the whims of the government? They've been promising you a bailout now for months on months on months on months since the first one. Have you gotten it? Look how many months have transpired or have passed since then. If you are waiting for food and water for that time, think about, especially if you have babies and children, think about how many of them would have passed away, God forbid. Think about the situation medically with some of them, if you depended on them. So you need to take the security of your families seriously and stop frivolously spending your money on unwise things, because it's going to come back and it's going to haunt you. Take this thing to heart and start doing a real appraisal of your life and the things that are dear to you, because it's all going to come front and center when this thing melts down. You don't have 20 years from now. You have anywhere from this time frame up into 2025. Roach, what is his name? Stephen Roach, the professor at Yale, said that he saw a dollar meltdown further down the line. But when the new numbers came in, it surprised him, and he said that he sees a complete dollar collapse no later than the end of 2021. Will you all stop putting your faith in the dollar, talking about how much you are worth, and start using what you have at this moment to secure something for you and your families for today, tomorrow, and the future, right? On that note, we'll come back with another stream, another video for you all. This was just something to look in the news to get you acquainted with what's going on, so that you'll understand that we are now living in very, very perilous times. I salute you. I love you. But remember, God He always loves you best. Peace.